From the dojo to the octagon, this is Budocast, your source for the latest in martial arts news, culture, and competition. From breaking fight results to evolving techniques, we cover it all. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, it is just a phenomenal time to be breaking down the sport, especially given the sheer volume of news crossing our desks this week.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for you guys listening, imagine being a billionaire power broker, right?
Yeah.
You just managed to single-handedly unify a historically fractured global sport.
Right.
But behind closed doors, you have to write your own name in a pocket notebook just so you don't forget it.
It's wild.
Or picture yourself as an undefeated champion, completely untouchable, and your own teammates are publicly pressuring you to take a massive 50% pay cut.
Just to prove a point.
Exactly, just to prove a point. We are pulling from an absolute mountain of reports today for this deep dive. Specifically, we've got sources from Low Kick MMA, SureDog, and MMA Weekly, all dated June 2026.
Some really heavy reading this week.
Yeah, really heavy. And the deeper I dug into these articles, the more I realized we aren't just looking at fight recaps here. We are looking at this massive collision between, the business of violence, the cultural fallout of unprecedented events, and really the unforgiving reality of the clock.
The clock is actually the perfect framing device for this material because, fans naturally are conditioned to watch the clock count down from 5 minutes inside the cage.
Right, the microview.
Exactly, the microview. But the sources we are analyzing today reveal that the most dramatic fights right now, they're governed by much larger kind of invisible clocks.
Yeah.
They're happening in boardrooms, they're playing out in these highly volatile press conferences, and they are taking a profound psychological toll on the athletes.
So let's start with those invisible clocks.
Yeah.
Because the structural forces shaping both boxing and mixed martial arts right now, they're entirely driven by men who are rapidly running out of time.
Yes, very literally.
And the first clock we need to look at, it isn't contractual and it isn't athletic.
Yes.
It's biological. I want to look at the reporting surrounding Turki Alalshikh.
Right. So for anyone casually observing boxing over the last couple of years, Turki Alalshikh has emerged as the ultimate catalyst.
The guy is everywhere.
He really is. He is the chairman of the General Entertainment Authority in Saudi Arabia, and he has essentially taken the fragmented, chaotic landscape of boxing and just brute forced it into delivering the mega fights that fans have frankly spent decades begging for.
Right, but the reports from Ring Magazine and Low Kick MMA, they pivot away from his wealth, and they focus entirely on a deeply personal, tragic timeline.
Yeah, it's a very different angle.
According to the sources, Alalshikh is attempting to arrange what sounds like the ultimate combat sports summit. Like, he wants to lock Dana White, Nick Khan, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, and DAZN executives all in a single room.
Just put them all in a room and don't let them out.
Seriously. His stated goal is to make peace in boxing, and he used this incredible phrase. He said he wants to see white smoke rise from the chimney.
The papal conclave metaphor is just brilliant theatricality.
It really is.
When cardinals elect a new pope, they lock themselves away from the world, and white smoke signals that a unified decision has been reached.
Right.
Alalshikh is essentially saying that boxing needs a singular, unified vision, and he wants the most stubborn, entrenched promoters on the planet to stay in a room until they agree on it.
But the reason he is pushing for this conclave right now is what stopped me in my tracks.
The health issues.
Yeah, the sources detail that Alalshikh is battling incredibly severe health issues. We are talking about cancer diagnoses that date all the way back to 2015.
That's over a decade of fighting this.
Exactly. And he currently has a brain tumor situated right near his pituitary gland. And his explicit stated fear, the engine driving this frantic push to unify the sport, is that he will lose his memory completely by 2028 or 2029.
Just a few years away.
He told reporters he genuinely fears he will forget his own name.
Man, the human element of that is just devastating.
It's awful.
The reports note that this forgetfulness isn't just like a distant anxiety.
Yep.
It has already reached an advanced stage.
Yeah, the notebook detail.
Right. He has to carry a small notebook with him constantly just to keep track of basic details, meetings, facts, things we take for granted.
Yeah.
When you take that medical reality and apply it to his business strategy over the last 2 years, everything shifts.
It really does change the context.
It stops looking like a wealthy benefactor playing matchmaker for fun, and it suddenly looks like a man desperately racing against his own cognitive decline to leave a permanent legacy.
It's like watching someone try to complete a 500-piece puzzle, but they know for an absolute fact that the lights in the room are about to be permanently turned off.
That is exactly what it feels like.
Every single demand he makes, every piece of the puzzle he tries to snap into place, it's done in a state of frantic urgency. There is no luxury of time. So reading this, I kept asking myself a somewhat cynical question.
Okay, let's hear it.
You know how boxing promoters operate? They're notoriously stubborn, ego-driven, historically vindictive toward one another.
To the least.
Does the raw human element of a ticking health clock actually have the power to force these guys to drop their egos and compromise?
Wow. I mean, that is the multi-million-dollar question right there.
Right.
To understand why this is so difficult, we really have to contrast the landscape of boxing with the model TKO Group Holdings uses for the UFC.
Okay, break that down.
So the UFC is a centralized monopolistic model. Dana White and Nick Khan want a system where one entity controls the entire roster.
Believes the best fight the best.
Exactly. The best fighters can easily be matched against the best. Boxing is the exact opposite. It is a fractured ecosystem. You have rival sanctioning bodies, competing networks like DAZN and ESPN, and promoters who harbor literally decades-long personal grudges.
They would rather see the sport suffer than see their rival get a win in a negotiation.
Precisely. And Alalshikh is trying to impose a TKO-style cohesion onto a sport that structurally resists it.
It's like trying to push a boulder up a hill.
So to answer your question about whether mortality can move the needle, it might literally be the only thing capable of doing it.
Wow. That's a strong statement.
Think about it. You cannot leverage money against these promoters because Hearn, Warren, and White already have immense wealth.
Right, they don't need his money.
You can't leverage fame because they have that too, but mortality creates a uniquely uncomfortable gravity.
It grounds everything.
It is profoundly difficult to sit across a negotiation table, prepare to play hardball over a broadcast rights percentage, and then watch the man across from you check a small notebook just to remember the context of the meeting, because a tumor is pressing against his brain.
Knees.
It strips away all the usual corporate posturing.
The sources noted that this is actively impacting the fighters, too. Like, Ryan Garcia publicly expressed his support.
Yeah, that was a big moment.
He was stating how much it hurts to hear what Alalshikh is going through, and when a fighter like Garcia is stopping to express pity for a global power broker, it completely inverts the usual dynamic.
It really does. Usually fighters view promoters as these untouchable, adversarial figures.
The boss you're fighting for scraps against.
Exactly. But here, the promoter is actually the most vulnerable person in the equation.
It creates a really sobering shadow over the entire enterprise.
It's a tragedy.
It is. It's a profound tragedy that it takes a man's declining health, a literal race against neurological darkness, to potentially save a chaotic sport from its own worst impulses.
It highlights just how deeply dysfunctional boxing's business model actually is.
Right, that it requires this level of existential urgency to even get these factions into the same room.
Now, if Turki Alalshikh is fighting an unavoidable biological clock, the sources pivot to another major figure who is fighting a much more artificial but equally stressful contractual clock.
Okay, transitioning back to MMA.
Yes, this brings us out of the boxing boardrooms and right back into the mixed martial arts landscape. I want to look at the situation with Usman Nurmagomedov.
The reigning PFL lightweight champion.
Yep.
An undefeated fighter sitting at 21-0 who represents one of those prestigious lineages in combat sports history.
Exactly. And according to the reports, he is rapidly approaching free agency.
He just fought, right?
Yeah, he defended his title against Alfie Davis back in February of this year, 2026. And he only has 2 fights left on his current PFL contract.
Okay.
But what makes this a massive story isn't just his contract status. It's what his own teammate is saying about it.
Oh, the Islam quotes?
Right. Islam Makhachev, the current pound-for-pound king and UFC champion, went to the press and publicly stated that Usman needs to jump ship to the UFC.
He actually said that out loud.
He did. Islam's exact reasoning was that Usman must make this move to fully realize his potential.
Which is such a fascinating phrase to unpack, isn't it? Fully realize his potential.
It is a highly subjective concept.
Right, because from a pure sporting perspective, Islam is echoing a universal sentiment. The UFC lightweight division is the deepest, most lethal shark tank in the history of martial arts.
There's really no debate there.
Right. It doesn't matter what you achieve elsewhere. The historical consensus is that if you want undeniable proof that you are the absolute best on the planet, you have to survive that specific division.
But hold on, Islam didn't just give him a motivational speech about legacy.
No, he did not.
He completely broke the unwritten rule of fighter PR and dropped a massive financial bombshell.
Yeah, he really threw the UFC under the bus on that one.
Islam explicitly admitted that moving to the UFC to chase that legacy would likely mean Usman takes a 50% pay cut.
50%. That is wild.
The quote in the source material is wild. Islam flat out said, in the PFL they pay much more, the UFC doesn't like paying that much.
That quote is incredible because of who is saying it. You have a reigning dominant UFC champion openly validating the primary criticism of his own promoter.
It's an open secret.
Yeah, Islam is confirming the open secret of MMA economics. The UFC operates on a model where they pay athletes in prestige, brand exposure, and historical relevance.
While a rival promotion like the PFL pays athletes in actual liquid cash.
Exactly. Islam is laying out the ultimate modern fighter dilemma for his teammate.
And this dilemma is what I find so compelling. We have Usman's perspective in the sources, too.
What did he say?
Usman has explicitly stated he wants to be recognized as the best lightweight in the world. But in the same breath, he says he's very happy with the PFL.
Right, he likes the money.
He made it clear that compensation will dictate his next move. He isn't blindly romanticizing the 3 letters of the UFC.
And realistically, he doesn't need to. The name Nurmagomedov carries its own distinct gravity in this sport.
It's its own brand.
But the internal tension has to be agonizing. On one hand, you have guaranteed life-altering wealth in the PFL. You are the reigning king, the promotion builds marketing around you, and you are securing generational wealth for your family.
It's the safe, smart play.
On the other hand, you have the historical prestige of the UFC, but it requires sacrificing half of your market value. It is a direct collision between financial literacy and sporting immortality.
If you strip away the martial arts aspect for a second, it's a universal career dilemma.
I was just thinking about this. Like, for you guys listening, picture yourself at the absolute apex of your profession. Let's say you are a top-tier software engineer.
Okay, good analogy.
You are working at a fantastic firm, making massive money, running your own department, and your family's future is completely secure. Now imagine a rival tech giant, the most prestigious cutthroat company on earth, offers you a job.
But there's a catch.
But they want you to take a 50% pay cut just for the privilege of putting their logo on your resume and proving you can survive their gauntlet.
Half your salary gone.
Do you take the financial hit for the prestige, knowing critics might always put an asterisk on your career if you don't? Or do you take the sure bet, maximize your earnings, and ignore the noise?
It is a brutally difficult choice, and the context of Usman's specific environment makes it even harder.
Because of his family.
Right. His cousin is Khabib Nurmagomedov. His teammate is Islam Makhachev. Both of those men chose the path of UFC immortality and achieved legendary status.
The peer pressure has to be insane.
The peer pressure to follow that exact trajectory has to be immense. But fighters today are vastly more educated about the business than they were 10 years ago.
Absolutely. They see the numbers.
They understand that the window for earning capital in combat sports is terrifyingly narrow. A single torn ligament, one bad knockout, or a detached retina can end your career tomorrow.
And then prestige doesn't pay the medical bills.
Exactly. Leaving a 50% premium on the table for the sake of a promoter's prestige is a massive, highly risky gamble.
So Usman's clock is ticking down to those final 2 fights, and the industry is really watching to see which currency he values more. But speaking of the UFC's immense platform and the leverage it provides, we need to transition our focus.
Moving on to the events themselves.
Yeah, the sources move us from the boardrooms and contract negotiations directly to the staging ground of these legacies. And we're looking at the fallout from an event that sounds entirely surreal, UFC Freedom 250.
Staged on the South Lawn of the White House in June 2026.
Just writing that sentence felt weird.
Just fundamentally, the venue choice alone marks a paradigm shift in how combat sports are integrated into American cultural institutions.
Completely unprecedented. Now, as we dive into the Sherdog and Low Kick MMA reports detailing what actually happened at the White House, we really need to take a hard pause here to frame this discussion.
Yes. We are navigating highly polarized, politically charged source material.
Very charged.
As your guides through this information, our mandate is clear. We are here to impartially report the events and quotes exactly as they are documented in the texts provided.
Hey.
We are solely analyzing the business fallout, the PR mechanics, and the sporting implications of these events. We are not taking a political stance, nor are we endorsing or condemning the viewpoints expressed by any of the athletes, promoters, or political figures mentioned in these articles.
Exactly. Our job is to break down the mechanics of the broadcast, not the politics of it. We just look at the facts presented.
Right.
So looking at the main card of UFC Freedom 250, heavyweight fighter Josh Hokit secured a victory over Derek Lewis.
Big win for him.
Huge win. But in the immediate aftermath, during his post-fight interview in the Octagon, Hokit takes the microphone and says, quote, "Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America?"
Wow. A statement that predictably ignited a massive firestorm.
Oh, yeah.
Both among the attendees on the White House lawn and across the global media covering the event.
Which brings us directly to the Vegas 119 media scrum that followed shortly after. Dana White was confronted by reporters about Hokit's comments.
And he didn't hold back.
No, according to the sources, Dana White did not hold back his personal distaste. He actually called the comment disgusting.
He used that exact word.
Disgusting. He even revealed that he texted Time magazine to clarify his stance, stating that he is completely against saying nasty and false things about people's families.
Okay, so he drew a personal line.
But, and this is the crux of the UFC's entire corporate philosophy, White firmly defended Hokit's absolute right to make that statement under the banner of free speech.
It is a fascinating case study in corporate boundaries.
It really is.
The reports highlight that Hokit actually has a well-documented history of this specific type of rhetoric.
Right, a Griner comment.
Yeah, at UFC 324, he made a similar comment, calling Brittany Griner a man. Dana White even acknowledged in the build-up to Freedom 250 that placing Hokit on a card with this level of visibility carried an inherent risk.
Dana knew what he was doing.
White stated he could almost guarantee that bad things would be said. But White's operational boundary is absolute. He will not, under any circumstances, police fighter speech.
Dana also used that press conference to proactively distance his personal views from Hokit's. Like, he went out of his way to praise Barack Obama.
He told a story about him, right?
Yeah, he recounted an encounter at a previous inauguration where the former president was incredibly gracious, approached him, and congratulated him on the success of the UFC.
That's interesting context.
Dana explicitly stated that he respects all past and present presidents. However, he followed that up by defining his view of free speech. He stated that part of the deal is that you, quote, gotta listen to stupid expletive like that sometimes, unfortunately.
If we detach from the specific political figures for a second and just look at the underlying corporate mechanics, it reveals the entirely unique paradigm the UFC operates within.
How so?
The UFC is a massive, multi-billion-dollar entity. They are ultimately backed by TKO Group Holdings and Endeavor.
Publicly traded company.
Exactly. If you look at any other comparable sporting league, the NFL, the NBA, the Premier League, if an athlete took a live microphone on a global broadcast and made a derogatory, conspiratorial claim about a former first lady, the corporate response would be instantaneous.
Oh, it would be a bloodbath.
There would be heavy fines, immediate suspensions, mandated sensitivity training, and massive pressure from title sponsors to sanitize the product.
The sponsors in the NFL would threaten to pull funding within the hour. The commissioner would issue an apology. It would be a 5-alarm corporate fire. But the UFC they just absorb it.
They don't just absorb it, they structurally accept it as the cost of their specific brand of promotion.
It's baked in.
The UFC refuses to filter its athletes because they view raw, unfiltered, highly volatile authenticity as their core product. They are selling chaos.
That's a great way to put it.
The danger of handing a live microphone to an adrenaline-fueled fighter isn't a flaw in their broadcast design, it is a feature.
Wow.
Dana White's willingness to accept severe PR blowback, even when he personally finds the comments disgusting, demonstrates a total commitment to an anti-corporate aesthetic within a highly corporate structure.
It is an incredible tightrope walk between maintaining billion-dollar broadcast deals and fostering a literal Wild West environment.
It really is.
But the chaos at Freedom 250 wasn't limited to the post-fight interviews. The actual sporting contest delivered massive historical controversies, too.
Let's get into the fights.
The sources highlight the co-main event, where Alex Pereira attempted to achieve something no one has ever done.
Alex Pereira, attempting to capture the heavyweight championship.
Going for 3 belts.
Yeah, if successful, he would have been the first fighter in UFC history to hold belts in 3 different weight classes, adding heavyweight gold to his middleweight and light heavyweight titles.
But the quest was denied. Pereira suffered a second-round TKO loss to Cyril Gane.
A tough loss.
However, the fight didn't end cleanly in the eyes of the former champion. Pereira publicly complained that during the final finishing sequence, as they were scrambling, he was struck with illegal blows to the back of the head.
And this instantly threw a massive spotlight onto referee Herb Dean, who was officiating the bout.
He always seems to be in the middle of these.
Dean did not intervene, he did not call a foul, and he allowed the finishing sequence to play out.
Dana White actually addressed this specific controversy at the press conference as well. He admitted that when you slow down the replay, it is undeniable that Pereira took strikes to the back of the head.
It's right there on tape.
But Dana offered a defense of the mechanics of fighting. He pointed out that in the heat of a violent, fast-paced scramble, inadvertent fouls are almost inevitable.
Which is fair, things happen fast.
He didn't completely absolve Herb Dean. He noted Dean was in a tough position and perhaps could have issued a verbal warning, but Dana framed it as an unfortunate reality of the sport rather than malicious intent.
But the most revealing part of Dana's commentary wasn't his analysis of the replay.
What was it?
It was his analysis of Pereira's character. Dana went on record saying, quote, "Alex Pereira is not a whiner."
Okay.
He emphasized that Pereira is a fighter who historically never makes excuses. Therefore, Dana reasoned, if a guy like Pereira is actually complaining about a stoppage, it means Pereira genuinely deeply believes he was wronged.
Okay, I have to challenge this logic, or at least explore the psychology behind it a bit.
Go for it.
Does a fighter's reputation for stoicism, and Pereira is the ultimate stoic, the guy barely changes his facial expression when he wins, let alone loses, does that stoic aesthetic actually force promoters and fans to take their complaints more seriously than a fighter who is more vocal? Is there a bias at play here?
It's a great question. But it's not necessarily a bias. It's a completely rational assessment of behavioral patterns.
How so?
Think of it as stoic currency.
Stoic currency, I like that.
In combat sports, there is a pervasive boy who cried wolf syndrome. There are fighters who reflexively blame everything but themselves when they lose.
Oh, we know plenty of those.
They blame the judges, they blame an early stoppage, they blame the altitude, they blame a bad training camp. When a fighter does that constantly, the promoter, the media, and the fans simply tune it out. It becomes background noise.
So because Pereira never spends that currency, his account is full.
Exactly. When a stone-cold competitor who usually just bows and walks out of the arena suddenly stops the press and says, wait, a rule was broken here and it cost me my historical moment,
everyone listens.
The entire ecosystem stops and pays attention. His historical silence buys him immense credibility. It forces the CEO of the company to publicly validate his feelings, even while upholding the referee's decision.
The sources mention that despite the setback, Pereira intends to remain in the heavyweight division.
He's not done yet.
So the three-belt dream is delayed, not dead.
Yeah.
But, if Pereira's fight was chaotic due to a scramble, the main event of Freedom 250 was pure, calculated devastation.
Oh, man, the main event.
The sources take a deep dive into the crowning of a new lightweight champion, Justin Gaethje.
Gaethje secured the title by defeating Ilia Topuria, who entered the bout as an undefeated, highly dominant superstar.
He looked unbeatable.
And Gaethje won the fight by doing exactly what his brand promises, dragging a pristine technical fighter into the deep, dark waters of extreme violence.
What I found fascinating in the MMA Weekly Report wasn't just that Gaethje won, but his specific breakdown of why he won.
Yeah, he was very analytical about it.
Gaethje claimed that the fight hinged on a very specific tactical and psychological mistake made by Topuria.
It is a brilliant glimpse into the mind of a veteran. Gaethje revealed that during the exchanges, he landed 4 or 5 severe liver hooks.
Brutal.
Now, for anyone who hasn't experienced or studied the mechanics of a liver shot, it is vastly different from a strike to the head or the jaw.
Yeah, it's not the same at all.
It doesn't just cause pain, it triggers a profound physiological shutdown.
Let's actually look at the mechanics of that, because I always assumed body shot just knocked the wind out of you.
It's much worse than that.
But Gaethje was talking about it like it broke Topuria's programming. What is actually happening in the body when that lands?
So the liver is the largest internal organ. It's heavily engorged with blood, and it sits just below the ribs on the right side, encased in a highly sensitive nerve capsule.
Okay.
When a professional fighter lands a perfectly placed hook to that exact spot, the sudden compression causes a massive spike in blood pressure within the organ. The vagus nerve instantly detects this trauma and triggers an involuntary systemic parasympathetic response.
What does that mean for the fighter?
It dilates your blood vessels, it drops your heart rate, and causes your legs to literally stop functioning.
Your legs just give out.
You remain completely conscious, but your body paralyzes itself to protect the organ. It is terrifying.
So Topuria experiences this physiological collapse.
Yeah.
Gaethje stated he could see Topuria was severely hurt.
He smelled blood.
But instead of retreating, circling away, or playing defense to recover, Gaethje said Topuria panicked.
He completely broke character.
Gaethje described it by saying Topuria dumped his tank, specifically calling it a Shane Carwin-esque reaction, trying to knock Gaethje out immediately.
That is a phenomenal reference by Gaethje.
For the old school fans.
Yeah, he is referring to the infamous heavyweight bout where Shane Carwin had Brock Lesnar hurt. Carwin threw so many massive, desperate punches trying to force a stoppage that he completely exhausted his own cardiovascular system.
He punched himself out.
Exactly, leaving him completely empty and resulting in his own defeat shortly after. Gaethje recognized that Topuria was adopting that same desperate strategy.
But here is the critical tactical error Gaethje points out. Ilia Topuria is a phenomenal grappler.
Elite.
The sources note he actually has more submission victories on his record than knockouts. But when his liver was compromised, he completely abandoned his safest path to victory.
He refused to grapple.
He refused. Gaethje bluntly stated that if Topuria had tried to take him down, Gaethje would have simply pulled guard or front-rolled, forcing Topuria to carry his dead weight on the ground.
This raises a fascinating psychological question.
Why do it?
Why does an undefeated elite martial artist who possesses a distinct advantage in grappling completely abandon his safest, most technical skill set the moment he takes severe bodily damage?
The best analogy I could think of while reading this is a poker player who is usually incredibly disciplined with their math.
Okay, I see where you're going.
But they take a massive bad beat, they watch their chip stack vanish, and they completely panic.
The tilt.
Exactly. They go on tilt. They go all in on a terrible hand just because they're bleeding chips, and they desperately want the round to end right now.
They just want out.
They aren't playing the statistical probabilities anymore. They're playing their own panic. Topuria felt his body shutting down. His brain told him, I cannot survive another 3 minutes of this feeling. I have to end this fight in the next 10 seconds.
Even if it meant throwing caution to the wind against the most dangerous brawler in the division. That is a perfect assessment. The fight-or-flight response completely overrode months of tactical camp preparation.
It's crazy how that happens.
For Topuria, the path of least resistance to stop the pain wasn't a methodical, grinding, grappling exchange. Taking Gaethje down and being forced to carry Gaethje's physical weight while his own liver is throbbing would have accelerated his exhaustion.
So his brain said no.
His brain calculated that the only way to survive was a desperate energy-dumping blitz to turn Gaethje's lights out.
And Gaethje was ready for it.
Gaethje, who thrives in chaos, anticipated that exact panic response. He weathered the storm, watched Topuria empty his physical reserves, and then capitalized. It is a masterclass in using your opponent's physiological panic against them.
Before we dive deeper, shout out to our sponsors. First up, Elite Sports. Leaders in premium fightwear for BJJ and MMA. Whether you're rolling or striking, they've got gear built to move with you. Check them out at elitesports.com.
Great stuff.
And if you're a school owner looking to optimize your dojo's performance, you need to check out Lotus by Open Black Belt. It's the ultimate management software for tracking ranks, attendance, and billing. They are currently offering a free trial to our listeners. Streamline your business so you can spend more time on the mats. Visit openblackbelt.com to start your trial today. You can find links for both in the show notes. And if you've got a story, news tip, or question, send it to us at Budocast.com.
All right, welcome back. We spent the first half of this deep dive looking at high-stakes championship strategies and the mechanics of extreme violence.
Heavy stuff.
But as we transition into the next set of sources, we are shifting from the tactical execution of striking to a raging, highly polarized debate tearing through the grappling community.
And this debate centers on the very nature and the cultural perception of martial arts techniques.
Yes.
Specifically, we are looking at a harsh critique leveled by UFC bantamweight Bryce Mitchell against a foundational Brazilian jiu-jitsu movement. But before we quote Mitchell directly, we must once again issue our mandatory impartiality disclaimer regarding the source text.
Absolutely. We are impartially reporting the text exactly as it appears in the provided articles.
Right.
We are not taking a stance on the specific language used, nor are we endorsing or condemning the viewpoints. Furthermore, we must briefly contextualize this with the factual background explicitly provided by the sources regarding Mitchell's public persona,
which is quite a list.
The text documents that Mitchell has a pattern of highly provocative public remarks. The sources specifically list that he called Hitler a good guy in January 2025, that he has made flat earth claims, that he flipped his political support regarding Trump, and that he labeled the very White House event we just discussed as political propaganda.
It's a lot of baggage there.
We are stating these points purely as factual background documented in the source material, completely neutrally, to establish the context of his rhetoric.
Understood. Now, focusing strictly on his martial arts critique, what did Mitchell actually say?
Well, he didn't mince words.
On his Arkansanity podcast, Mitchell targeted a widely used BJJ technique, commonly referred to as butt scooting.
A classic topic of debate.
He used highly derogatory language, calling the technique gay and directly accusing BJJ professors who teach the movement of teaching gayness. He elaborated by saying, quote, sit on your butt and scoot at your opponent. It's called butt scooting. Yeah. If they're teaching this butt scooting, they're probably gay.
To properly analyze this debate, we first really need to define the mechanics of butt scooting for anyone who might not watch pure sport jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah, describe it for us.
It is a highly literal term. A competitor intentionally sits down on the mat, usually after pulling guard, and propels their body forward toward a standing opponent by posting on their hands and dragging their hips.
Which, if you have never seen it before, it looks incredibly strange.
It really does. Aesthetically, it looks completely counterintuitive to fighting.
You're just sitting there.
But mechanically, within the specialized rule set of pure Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it is a mathematically sound, highly functional tactic.
How so?
In a pure grappling match, if one athlete pulls guard and sits, and the standing athlete refuses to step into the guard to engage, a stalemate occurs.
Right.
The seated fighter uses the scooting motion to close the physical distance, aggressively pursue leg entanglements, and initiate sweeps without ever having to engage in standing wrestling or expend the massive energy required to secure a traditional takedown.
The sources point out a crucial detail about Mitchell's perspective, though. Mitchell just won a UFC fight via arm triangle choke in June 2026.
He's not just a striker.
No, he is a highly dangerous credentialed grappler. He isn't criticizing the technique from a place of ignorance.
Right, he knows the game.
He admitted he knows exactly how to butt scoot, but he drew a very firm philosophical line in the sand regarding when it is acceptable to use it.
Okay, what's his line?
He stated he only resorts to the technique if he is, quote, knocked loopy and is desperately trying to survive and buy time to get back to his feet. He aggressively rejects using it as a proactive offensive game plan.
And while Mitchell's language is uniquely inflammatory, the underlying critique of the technique's aesthetics actually echoes a larger sentiment within the grappling community.
Yeah, he's not the only one who thinks it looks weird.
The sources highlight that even Craig Jones, an ADCC silver medalist and one of the most elite, innovative grapplers on the planet who frequently utilizes seated guard pulling, ironically agreed with the visual critique.
What did Craig say?
Jones admitted that the move looks very gay, leaning into the joke, but he staunchly defended it as an incredibly potent tactical decision.
Especially against wrestlers.
Exactly, especially when facing opponents with vastly superior standing wrestling credentials.
This clash is fascinating because it exposes a profound cultural rift between different martial arts disciplines.
Form versus function.
It makes me wonder about the psychology of training. At what point does prioritizing the desire to look like a fighter, maintaining this stoic, dominant, upright warrior aesthetic, actively hinder a martial artist's ability to mechanically win a fight?
That question cuts to the absolute core of the debate. In the culture of mixed martial arts, the warrior aesthetic is paramount.
You have to look tough.
The culture demands that you stand up, impose physical dominance, and look incredibly dangerous at all times. Sitting down on the floor and dragging yourself toward another grown man violates every primal instinct of dominance.
You look vulnerable.
Furthermore, in a real-world scenario or a unified MMA rule set, sitting down voluntarily makes you incredibly vulnerable to devastating kicks to the head, or allows the standing opponent to simply back away and let the referee stand you up.
Exactly. The MMA rule set actively punishes the position.
Right. But pure sport BJJ operates in a completely different reality. In that specific rule set, the bottom position is transformed from a vulnerability into an incredibly powerful offensive launchpad.
It's their domain.
The athletes who butt scoot are optimizing their bodies for the rules of their specific game. They are ignoring aesthetics entirely in favor of mechanical efficiency.
They just want to win.
The friction occurs when the MMA mindset, which prioritizes visual toughness and the threat of striking damage, judges the pure grappling mindset, which values leverage, joint manipulation, and energy conservation above all else, regardless of how silly it might look to a casual observer.
Yeah.
Mitchell's critique, stripped of its rhetoric, is a fundamental rejection of prioritizing sporting efficiency over traditional martial aesthetics.
It's the ultimate collision between form and function. Mitchell associates the seated position entirely with trauma. As he said, he only uses it if he gets knocked loopy.
It's purely defensive for him.
He equates sitting on the mat with desperation and survival.
Which serves as a deeply poignant transition into the final theme of our sources. Because if we are talking about fighters getting knocked loopy and utilizing desperate survival tactics, we really have to examine the ultimate survival test in combat sports.
The one nobody beats.
The opponent that no amount of technique, aesthetics, or efficiency can defeat.
The unforgiving reality of time. We open this deep dive looking at Turki Alalshikh's biological clock and Usman Nurmagomedov's contractual clock. But now, we need to look at the undeniable physical toll the sport takes on aging veterans.
It's a tough read.
The sources detail a heartbreaking night for Kyoji Horiguchi.
Horiguchi is an absolute pioneer, a phenomenal mixed martial artist who carried the banner for Japanese MMA into the modern era.
A legend in every sense.
Yeah.
But at UFC Vegas 119, the 35-year-old veteran experienced a devastating setback.
He was on a roll, too.
He came into the fight riding massive momentum, an 8-fight win streak, looking to make what was likely his final run toward a flyweight championship.
But the run was violently halted.
It was. He suffered a third-round knockout loss to Manel Kape, and the sources add a layer of historical irony to this. Horiguchi had previously fought and defeated Kape almost a decade ago, back in Reason in 2017.
Which perfectly illustrates the cruelty of the aging process in combat sports.
It really does.
In 2017, Horiguchi's speed and reaction time were sufficient to neutralize Kape, but nearly a decade later, the physical attributes shift.
The margins are so thin.
Kape was able to find the target, flash his formidable power, and force the referee to stop the bout in the third round.
But the focus of the reporting isn't just on the punch that ended the fight. It's on Horiguchi's response to it.
This is the crazy part.
Because after being violently separated from his consciousness on an international broadcast, his immediate reaction defies normal human logic.
Completely.
He released a statement on X, apologizing to his fans, bluntly admitting he got spectacularly knocked out and praising his opponent. But then he added this line, quote, "This is why I can't quit martial arts. I'll retrain and be back in no time. I'm not giving up on my dream yet."
Let's truly analyze the neurological and psychological reality of that statement. The sheer resilience required to type those words in the immediate aftermath of a knockout is staggering.
It's almost unimaginable.
A knockout is the ultimate, undeniable physical failure. Your brain is forcefully rebooting itself to protect against severe neurological trauma.
Yeah.
You wake up on the canvas, staring at the arena lights, surrounded by medical staff, fully aware that thousands of people in the building and millions watching at home just witnessed your absolute lowest, most vulnerable moment.
If that happened to the average person in any profession, they would disappear.
Oh, without a doubt.
They would delete their social media, hide from the public, and seriously question their life choices.
Most people would immediately retire. But Horiguchi logs online, accepts the public humiliation with complete grace, and immediately vows to subject himself to the exact same danger again.
It's a different breed.
It illuminates a heartbreaking truth about veteran fighters. The psychological dream of the championship rarely fades at the same rate as the physical body.
The mind wants what the body can't do.
At 35 years old, competing in the flyweight division, a weight class where microscopic advantages in speed, twitch muscle fibers, and reaction time dictate everything, the biological clock is screaming that the physical window is closing.
He won't listen.
But his internal drive is completely overriding that biological data.
It is a profound refusal to let the calendar dictate the final chapter of his story. And the sources provide an incredible contrast to Horiguchi's gritty, quiet resilience.
The complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Because, while Horiguchi is grinding through the heartbreak of a knockout, another veteran is attempting to fight the exact same clock under completely different circumstances. The reports highlight the impending return of the biggest commercial star the sport has ever produced.
Conor McGregor.
McGregor is officially slated to return to the octagon on July 11, 2026, headlining UFC 329 against Max Holloway.
A rematch 13 years in the making.
It is a highly anticipated rematch of their encounter way back in 2013.
The MMA Weekly article takes time to contextualize this return by looking back at McGregor's absolute zenith.
His peak.
They point back to November 2016 UFC 205 at Madison Square Garden. That was the night McGregor put on a flawless, untouchable striking clinic to finish Eddie Alvarez and become the promotion's first simultaneous two-division champion.
He's a force of nature that night.
He was untouchable, but that was a decade ago. And more pressingly, McGregor has been entirely sidelined, away from professional competition, for 5 full years. Half a decade.
The juxtaposition between Horiguchi and McGregor is just a masterclass in the divergent paths of aging fighters.
It really is.
You have Horiguchi, who has been incredibly active, grinding his way through the lower ranks, slowly stringing together an 8-fight win streak, just to earn his way back into the conversation, only to be violently turned away.
The hard road.
And on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have McGregor.
Right. McGregor doesn't have to grind. He completely bypasses the meritocracy of the rankings.
He gets a free pass to the top.
He returns after a 5-year hiatus, having accumulated massive generational wealth from his whiskey company, his Hollywood ventures, and his previous blockbusters.
Yeah.
And he gets to walk straight off a yacht and into a globally televised pay-per-view super fight.
The bank accounts and the career trajectories couldn't be more different. But functionally, mechanically, they are both stepping into the cage to fight the exact same opponent.
And the opponent isn't Mantle Cape, and it isn't Max Holloway.
It's the clock.
Precisely. The concept of ring rust after 5 years of inactivity is a massive physiological hurdle.
You can't fake that timing.
Fighting is a game of millimeters and split-second timing. You cannot simulate the chaotic pressure of a live opponent in a sparring session.
Especially not after 5 years.
Furthermore, the sport evolves at an incredible pace. The version of Max Holloway that McGregor fought in 2013 was a young prospect. The Max Holloway of 2026 is a seasoned, highly complex veteran.
He's a completely different animal now.
McGregor is attempting to overcome the physical reality of aging, the neurological reality of 5 years away from live fire, and the psychological reality of extreme comfort.
That might be the hardest one to beat.
It's incredibly difficult to summon the desperate, hungry violence required to survive in the octagon when you no longer need the paycheck to survive in life. He is trying to replicate a masterpiece long after the hunger that forced him to paint it has vanished.
It is a profound realization. You have Horiguchi trying to physically outwork the passage of time through sheer volume and grit.
Just pushing through it.
You have McGregor attempting to leverage his massive wealth and star power to buy back time and skip the line.
Right.
And to bring it all full circle, you have Turki Alalshikh utilizing his billions to try and beat the clock before his memory completely fades. Every single figure we have discussed today, from the billionaire power brokers to the undefeated prospects to the aging flyweights, is trapped inside the exact same hourglass.
It is the great equalizer of combat sports and perhaps of life itself. The championship belts, the $100 million broadcast deals, the 8-fight win streaks, none of it possesses the power to pause the clock.
It just keeps ticking.
And that reality forces you to deeply question the core motivations driving these men. Why does a man with hundreds of millions in the bank volunteer to be locked in a cage and punched in the face after 5 years of safety?
Exactly.
Why does a 35-year-old pioneer endure a brutal knockout and immediately ask his coaches when he can get back on the mats?
That is the perfect lingering note to leave you with today. Picture Turki Alalshikh sitting in a boardroom, checking a notebook to remember his own deals, desperately trying to fix the sport of boxing before his mind betrays him.
A powerful image.
Picture Kyoji Horiguchi waking up on the canvas, surrounded by doctors, and immediately refusing to surrender his dream. And picture Conor McGregor leaving a life of extreme luxury to willingly step back into the fire after half a decade away. The thread connecting all of these incredible sources isn't just the business of violence or the pursuit of money. It is the raw, desperate human need to leave an undeniable permanent mark on the world before our time finally runs out.
Perfectly said.
That's it for this episode of Budocast. Thanks for joining us as we break down the latest in martial arts. We'll be back soon with more news, stories, and insights. Until then, train hard, stay humble.